Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us and welcome back to SocietyCast, our new virtual speaker series aimed at facilitating inspiration, insights, and innovation amongst all of you, our network. I'm your host. My name is Vianney Lubis, Vice President of the Alumni Society, and I'm coming to you here from my home in Chicago. And to kick off, I see many of you are already using it, which is fantastic. I encourage you all to use our live chat. Tell us where you're joining us from in the world. Say hello and let me know if you can see and hear me okay. And so we're also, a quick little note, we're going to be using polls throughout the talk today. So feel free to take a part in those, just located here, just below the screen here where it says polls. In a moment, I'm going to go ahead and bring up our speakers. But before I do that, I just want to take a couple of minutes to run through a few housekeeping items and share how our program is going to go today. So today we're going to have about 20 minutes with our speakers, followed by an interactive Q&A session with all of you. So I encourage you, submit your questions throughout the talk today. There are two main ways to do so. You can use the Ask a Question feature, also located here below the screen, and as well as I'll be monitoring the chat box. So if you want to use that, feel free, and I can grab those questions for our moderator today. In addition, a pro tip, if you see a question in the Ask a Question feature that is similar to the one that you want to ask, you can actually just go ahead and upvote that. It will rise it to the top, make sure that it gets answered. So I encourage you to use that as well. So let's go ahead and invite our speakers today and not further delay. All right. Hello, Natalia. Hi, Nicole. How are you both?
Hi, doing well.
All right, so everyone, I want to introduce you to our speakers today. First, Natalia here on the right. She is our interviewer. Natalia Oberti Noguera is the founder and CEO of Pipeline Angels. Dubbed the coach by Marie Claire, Natalia is also creator and host of Pitch Makeover, which is a podcast on pitching and investing that spotlights startups launched by women, non-binary people, and men of color. Inc. magazine selected Natalia as one of the most impressive women entrepreneurs of 2016. That's amazing. Latina.com included her in their list of 25 Latinas who shine in tech. And Women's E-News recognized her as one of 21 leaders for the 21st century for 2012. So Natalia, I had to share those impressive accolades because you're amazing. So, and today Natalia is going to be interviewing Pipeline Angels member Nicole Cuellar-Lopez here in the middle. Nicole is a senior manager for diversity and inclusion at Peloton. She is a proud graduate of Howard University, a strong Afro-Latinx. She is dedicating to establishing her career in truth and service, and I applaud that very much. So excited to hear Nicole's angel investing journey today, and very honored to have you both with us today. With that, Natalia, I'll let you take the floor, and then I will come back to close.
Thank you so much, Vianney. Well, first of all, it's usually such a pleasure when your name gets pronounced correctly, so shout out to Vianney. Muchísimas gracias. Orgullosa de conocerte. Hey, everyone. As Vianney said, I am Natalia. I am the founder and CEO of Pipeline Angels. I am cis, queer, Latinx. My pronouns are she, her, and representing, because there are many of us, queer and Latinx, and especially during Pride Month, really important for us to represent and make further progress in our communities. So on that note, I also think it's important to just share that holding space for our Afro-Latinx siblings and communities that in the Latinx community, we know there are many, including Afro-Latinx Nicole Cuellar-Lopez, I will be getting to interview in a little bit. And so just wanting to hold space because this is a time of heightened white supremacy, anti-Blackness, and police violence. And it's important that we remember that there are Black Latinx in our community and that there's a lot of work that we non-Black Latinx need to do. So thank you for taking a moment to honor the diversity in our community. So I have a little bit of some stats that I wanted to share to kind of ground us on why we're having this conversation regarding why we need more Latinx angel investors. Before that, there was a poll that Vianney put, which was about like how many of you are familiar with the TV show Shark Tank. And, actually, it's how many of you are fans of Shark Tank? And so far, #1 fan is winning. If you haven't gotten a chance to vote yet, feel free to vote. The reason that we're starting off with bringing up Shark Tank is because we often and genuinely call our members sharks in training, because this is oftentimes the first time that they're making an angel investment. So we talk about how our members are often the friends and family round for entrepreneurs, especially from our communities that don't have that early critical support. And I do want to share a very cool milestone that one of our portfolio companies had last year. The company's name is Mommy. It is a tech platform that supports both prenatal and postpartum the journey. And the founder's name is Melissa Hanna. Melissa is a Black founder based in Tongva Territory, LA. And Melissa announced last year that she secured a multi-million-dollar funding round led by the Serena Williams, Arlen Hamilton's new fund, and Mark Cuban. And our members had the opportunity to participate in this follow-on round. Here is the crux of the matter. Melissa pitched Mommy to Pipeline Angels in 2015. And I'm here to share with you, and especially if they're entrepreneurs, who are joining us today, that the Mommy of 2015 is not the Mommy of 2019. However, if you don't invest in the Mommy of 2015, how are you going to get to the Mommy of 2019? And that's really the role that our members are playing, helping create that runway to give these companies a chance. Now, are you ready for some depressing stats? I'm warning you. So, what are we also in the middle of? We are in the middle of a pandemic. And so that meant that a lot of Black and Latinx community entrepreneurs have not had a great chance at securing that support from the Paycheck Protection Program. And there has been a lot of institutional, I would say, systemic issues, which, another word for it, racist policies that exist, from, how are you going to get a PPP if maybe you haven't actually ever been approved for a loan in the past, or have a relationship with a bank. According to a recent survey from Color of Change, Unidos US, and Global Strategy Group, close to half of Black and Latinx-owned small businesses expect to have to close their doors within 6 months, not knowing if they will have the ability to ever open again. A majority, 51% of Black and Latinx small business owners who sought assistance requested less than $20,000 in temporary funding from the federal government. Only about 1 in 10, that means 12%, received the assistance they requested. So there are a couple of other stats that, thank you, Vianney, for sharing in the chat box. I wanted to go back to the amount, which is $20,000 that was requested. So generally, when we're talking about amount of $20,000, that's generally how much a friends and family round is. And so our goal today, and my hope as Nicole shares, the angel investing journey, is that, hey, if the status quo and those systems that are out there are not actually helping, because guess what? They're actually working the way that they were meant to work. We need to create new systems. We need to create better systems. And by having more Latinx angel investors, the hope is we can create more of that friends and family round support that's critical to ensure that so many of these businesses don't go out of business and that they can actually grow and scale. So, okay, another depressing stat. Are you ready? So according to the Wharton and Angel Capital Association, only 1.3% of US angel investors are Black, only 5.7% are Asian, and only 2.3% are Latinx. 88% are white. And we're proud at Pipeline Angels to share that 35% of our members are Black, 10% are Asian, and 5% are Latinx. So let me share this with you. We have doubled the amount of Latinx investors in our community. We also are committed to doubling it even more. And one of the ways that we can do this is hopefully by amplifying the Latinx members we have and having them share how they came into angel investing. And so without further ado, I'm so thrilled to introduce Wise Latina and Pipeline Angels member, Nicole Cuellar-Lopez, who's changing the face of angel investing. Nicole, welcome.
Thank you, Natalia. Thank you to the Alumni Society for hosting this. I'm Nicole. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm happy to join.
Nicole, I have a very super, this just showing off my queerness softball question. When did you first come across the term angel investing? Like, what was your first experience with that?
Softball. I see what you did there. Okay, so the first time I heard about angel investing was my first job in tech. It wasn't from my family. It wasn't from my community. I was born in the Bronx. Both my parents are nurses and have worked in healthcare their whole careers, nothing to do with finance. What I was aware of was checking accounts and savings accounts, and that was pretty much it. Maybe you get a 401k if you're lucky. About 7 years ago, I got my first job in startup world, and that was working for a very young version of Uber. And the company, everyone has read maybe quite a bit about Uber and its growth trajectory. And I learned that the way the company got started was with angel investing. And I had an opportunity to actually meet some of the angel investors who put money into Uber. And lo and behold, they were really regular people. There wasn't anything particularly fancy or special about them. And it got me really curious about, what does it take to be an angel investor? What has this investment meant for them? Who is a typical angel investor who has access to those kinds of deals? And we'll get into that. But as I started to learn more, I became curious, and it was more of a, well, why not me? And at the time, what I learned was you have to be accredited to be an angel investor, and that means you have to have an income of $100,000 on your own, or $200,000 if you're married for 2 years, or $1 million in assets, to be qualified as an angel investor, an accredited investor. So I wasn't there yet, but fortunately, working at a startup, equity was part of the package, and I stayed with the company for several years. And later on, found that qualified me. And that's kind of what led me to Pipeline Angels and to actually taking my first steps in those directions.
I think that's so important how you mentioned how getting to actually meet actual angel investors and realizing that they're regular folks is so important. We meet a lot of people who don't realize that they are accredited investors, and because it hasn't been a conversation, especially in our communities, that we've had. We talk about financial literacy, and it's almost like the other piece that we're working at Pipeline Angels is, what about wealth building, right? We talk about it's almost like we talk about tell me if this is like a helpful one. We do we know how the summation, etc., adding and subtracting, and it's like, how do we get to algebra? How do we get to calculus? And guess what? Actually, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of this analogy, because you know what happens when we change to that? Then it gets exponential. That's the piece that is missing from the conversation for our communities and to grow our wealth. And do I have stats? Yes, I do. Latinx siblings, let me tell you. So according to a 2011 Pew Research report, about a third of Hispanic, their term, I personally prefer Latinx, 31%, and Black 35% households had zero or negative net worth in 2009, compared with 15% of white households. Also, per a 2018 Center for American Progress report, white families in the U.S. have a median wealth of $142,180 compared to $20,765 for Latinx families, and $17,600 for Black families. So I'm giving these numbers because they're pretty dire and they're pretty stark. And when we're talking about, remember how I said that 88% of US angel investors are white? There are layers and levels to why that's happening. And then the other piece is also the education, the awareness, and the access. And so in as much as we talked about accredited investors, what about if someone is a non-accredited investor? What about if someone doesn't make $200,000, in single person income? What about if someone is not married, making $300,000 with, spouse, or has $1 million in net worth? One of my favorite definitions of angel investing is that it's smart money, meaning, yes, it's the financial capital. It's also the human capital, and it's also the social capital. Financial capital, of course, like the money, social capital in terms of the connections and the network that the investor can leverage for their entrepreneur, and also the human capital, the expertise, the experience, and the background. So would love to get a sense from you, Nicole, in terms of other alternatives. I think you had mentioned in our prep call, each dollar counts, and so what are more ways that someone who might not be an accredited investor could engage?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I think about what's going on right now in the dialogue. A lot of people are taking this 15% pledge. That might mean for, if you own a store, devoting 15% of your shelf space to companies and products that are owned and operated by people of color, by Latinx founders, or Black founders in this moment is what we're talking about more broadly. Can you do that in your own household when you're having a wedding or a birthday party? Who are these vendors that you're choosing? Let's keep money in the community, right? And help build up these businesses. I also think there are some really smart and interesting and creative ways to engage with startups right now. AngelList.com lets you buy into startups in kind of like an ETF type of index fund. Republic.com also helps you invest in startups, even if you're not an angel investor. So those are great ways to really get started and begin, as well as, thinking about who are the entrepreneurs in your life, and are there ways in which you can contribute to them, maybe not financially, but maybe you know something about marketing, or you're a business consultant and might be willing to offer your services for free or at a discount. There are many ways to support Latinx run businesses and help grow these endeavors.
Thank you, Nicole. And on that note, in terms of what are created alternatives and ways that communities can support, something that we're doing at Pipeline Angels is that we're committed, as I mentioned, to doubling the number of Black and Latinx investors. And so we, breaking news, we're actually announcing it right now, the second, have launched a wealth building initiative where we'll be providing $1,000 in support to any Black and Latinx candidates who apply to our angel investing bootcamp. And our next one is this fall. And I obviously applies and gets accepted. That's what my lawyer would want to make sure that I clarify. And the reason for this is because if we're not in, if we're, oh my gosh, someone please on the chat tell me who I should be crediting for the saying, if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. So, we need to actually get into the game and play it, because that's how we're going to help create more wealth for our communities. I guess, just in case, I'm checking the ask a question. If anyone, wants to start asking questions, make sure to include it there. I did want to go back to some stats, kind of full circle, to kind of close the loop. According to the Center for Responsible Lending, on April 6th, they warned that the Paycheck Protection Program would, here it is, roughly 95% of Black-owned businesses, 91% of Latinx-owned businesses, 91% of Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander-owned businesses, and 75% of Asian-owned businesses stand close to no chance of receiving a PPP loan through a mainstream bank or credit union. So I wanted to share this as a way to kind of close the loop, because studies have shown that people invest in who looks like them, and what's familiar. There's even a term for it, pattern matching, pattern recognition. And so far that has benefited a lot of white guys who, because 88% of U.S. angel investors tend to be white guys. And so with that in mind, just thinking about the opportunity to get more of us on the investing side, because we're probably going to be more open about investing in more of us on the entrepreneurship side. Awesome, Paola. Thank you. So Paola just asked about the benefits of becoming an angel investor. Nicole, what are some thoughts you have?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're in the position of angel investing, and that's investing your own money in startups, you're an accredited investor, so chances are you're making a good income or have some source of assets, right? Personally, I think that once you become comfortable, and maybe even before you're totally comfortable, right? Like generosity and giving should be a part of who you are and what you do. But once certainly you're reaching accredited investor status, you kind of have to have a plan for your money. And part of it might be, paying down your credit card debt, your student loans, investing in real estate, investing in your 401k. Certainly there's going to be a bucket of investments that are really safe, a bucket of investments that are really like medium risk. And you might want to carve out an amount of your portfolio that is high risk, or that is that you're okay if it doesn't come back to you. So for me, instead of pouring all of that into real estate, like many of us are familiar with, or our parents might encourage us to do, I've chosen to use that high risk bucket or the aggressive bucket for angel investing. And, the idea there is not every company is going to be an Uber or be, go all the way to the top. But if you invest a little bit in a bunch of companies, what I'm looking for is really a 10x or more return. I'm looking for this to pay off. And that's why I'm using the skills and the knowledge that I have from my career and from the Pipeline Angels Network. I rely on other members to give input, and we talk through the strengths and the risks of a certain company that we might want to invest in. I make a savvy decision about whether I want to put some money into that company, and I want to support them and see them grow and grow and grow, like a mommy story that Natalia shared a few minutes ago. So, the payoff is financial. It also, to me, makes me feel good about what I'm doing with my money. I could certainly try to shop it into a hedge fund or some other vehicle that other folks use, but I want to see it have an impact in the world, and that's why I've chosen to invest with a group like Pipeline Angels that looks for founders that are women and femmes, with a special eye to racial, ethnic, and inclusion with the LGBTQ community.
Nicole, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because one of Sophia's questions was, what is the risk involved? And so, yes, it is high risk. And there's also that saying, high risk, high reward. So the fact of actually thinking of it as a portfolio where you have, you're redistributing it in different ways, I think is important. And the fact that you also mentioned you get to actually support directly founders and entrepreneurs. I'm actually wearing, I hope you check it out, it's a very savvy blazer by another Pipeline Angels portfolio company called Makoko. The founder's name is Automadebo. That's also the name of the brand. So you can go to automadebo.com. And so this is also, I think, interestingly, as we're the economy, and we talk about the stock market, et cetera. And so like that sometimes can feel like so many degrees, in terms of like separation, and the fact that here we are directly impacting and we know the founders and the entrepreneurs, I think is a really important point that you brought up. There was another question that, let me know is there anything else that you think would be helpful to share with Sophia? I think you also mentioned like the risk averse piece of the conversation regarding when it comes to our communities and wealth building. So I think that would be super helpful if you could share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think it's just an unfamiliar method of investing for our community. My parents had a lot of questions when I talked to them about what I wanted to do. And, you kind of have to be ready for that. So maybe it's a little bit of social pressure where, you're expected to kind of go along with the crowd in terms of what you do with your money. And when you make a decision that you believe in, right? Like you have to be ready to stand behind it. And if you want to multiply the effect, maybe you bring others along with you. So for me, any risk aside from the financial, which I understand, is a little bit of the social of, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Sometimes that puts me in a room where I'm not totally comfortable because I might be the only one, right? Like dinners with other angels or other groups, I might feel like I'm not perceived to be as serious as them, but I know the investments that I've made and I know I can speak intelligently to them and I don't have anything to prove. So, there's a little bit of a journey, I think, of getting comfortable with being an angel investor. For me, it's not a full-time job. I have a full-time job and I engage with this, as my bandwidth and schedule allows, and as deals come that I feel really passionate about supporting. So, I think that kind of sums it up in my view. Natalia, I don't know if you see anything different.
Well, I love that you mentioned the piece about coming into new rooms and, also acknowledging, why not? We're throwing so many terms out into conversation. Let's also use imposter syndrome. And oftentimes, what I notice is that particularly there are a lot of women, non-binary people, and men of color that have a ton of the smart money. However, they're already doing it in terms of volunteering, in terms of community service, etc. And it's, I guess another way that you could do it is angel investing. The other piece, and this connects to Francisco's question, is the concept of being like a safe, encouraging place, which was one of the reasons that, Pipeline Angels started, which was to create this space for, I'd say the majority of our members, is the first time that they're making an angel investment. For me, it was, how do we get more of us at the table? And it's like, how do we make the pie bigger? We need to get people on board and interested in considering angel investing who might not actually have ever checked out Shark Tank. That's a very simple example. At the same time, there are a ton of people who maybe aren't familiar with the TV show or haven't considered, maybe they haven't been inspired and considered becoming an entrepreneur to pitch. However, maybe they have not considered that they themselves could be the shark. And so in that sense, Pipeline Angels has really served as a launch pad into the angel investing journey, which, we're sharing with you, your journey. And also that has also meant that some of our members have joined later stage angel groups. So, whether it's later stage in terms of like the sort of deal flow, because the type of deal flow that we get at Pipeline Angels is super early stage. As I mentioned, friends and family round. Oftentimes our members are the first check-in for a reason. It might also be interesting in terms of the question that Francisco asked. It was specifically, are there any specific sectors, product groups within angel investing space that you can describe so we can better understand the space? What is the marketplace channel to engage and transact in the space? And so I'd say that, angel groups consist from both in terms of like early stage, like you and I invest in Series A, Series B, and also focus, right? Like I think, Nicole, you mentioned how important the impact piece is for you, which, is a big piece of the Pipeline Angels mission. And also maybe there's like tech focused or consumer product goods, CPG focused angel groups as well. What else would you say, Nicole, in terms of like just sharing a little bit about that space, the space and maybe anything else that you've come across?
Groups, and you have to find the right one for you, where you feel comfortable, where you find, I hope you can find like-minded people. For me, I found that in Pipeline Angels, but certainly, there's angel groups in Miami, there's in Dallas, there's all kinds of things. And some of them might be focused on healthcare deals. Some of them might be focused on tech and software. It just varies. So I would say look around before you commit. There's another question in the poll around what's the process for becoming an angel investor, which I think is good to talk about. Some angels operate on their own and they look for founders and they start these conversations and they go through the whole process on their own. For me, I wanted more support, so I found a group like Pipeline Angels that had an education piece So like a boot camp seminar type of learning workshop. And then we invest together as a group. There was another question in there around minimums. And for Pipeline Angels, we commit to, as individuals, putting in $5,000, at least $5,000 to a company that we select. So it's not an astronomical amount. And it is an amount that, like, as a group, if I'm putting in $5,000 and 10 other people from the group are putting in $5,000, that's $50,000. That's a lot of money to get some people started. Some people are only raising 20. Some people are raising more. So it really varies. So if you do feel like you need the support and the learning, portion, I would seek out a group like Pipeline Angels. There are many similar, groups, and go about it that way. If you're already pretty savvy about it, it might be something that you do on your own, or you look for a group of mature angels. I don't know.
I'm so glad that you brought up the investment amount, because a ton of, as I mentioned, later stage angel groups, a lot of them are predominantly white and or male. So something to keep in mind in terms of other ways to think about who you want to invest alongside. And then the other piece is a lot of them have an annual investment minimum of $25K. And so when I launched Pipeline Angels, a big piece for me, as I was mentioning, in terms of how do we get more of us into the room, was also how do we lower the barrier to entry. And so some from our communities, they might technically be able to write that $25K check. However, if this is their first time doing it, they might hesitate. They might be like, what is this about? And so to us, it was really, how do we really increase the access by literally lowering the barrier to entry. And so, and after, as Nicole mentioned, like the sessions that we hold include, like, from due diligence to term sheets to valuations. And then this is the important part that entrepreneurs, I would say, would underscore, is that one of our signature events is a pitch summit. And then the members select the entrepreneurs who end up pitching there, and then ultimately they move forward. I think someone was asking about the selection process. And so then they narrow it down to 3 companies and ultimately select at least one company to invest in. And what has been really cool is throughout the process, some members have actually ended up investing more than $5K. And this is the important part, because unfortunately out there are a lot of people call themselves angel investors, and founders will tell you that they have not written a check. So for us, it's really important that we are founder friendly, and a big part of being founder friendly is actually putting your money where your mouth is, and actually doing what these investors need, which is sending those checks, transferring those wires. I'd say the other piece, actually, this is in terms of someone asking for the advisory board, which has been really cool, is that several of our members have been able to join the boards of some of the companies that they have invested in, because guess what? This is another depressing stat. There are not that many women, non-binary people, and men of color serving on Fortune 500 boards. And oftentimes, how does someone, get asked to serve on a Fortune 500 board? Oh, because they already serve on another one, and they've met someone who will then invite them to serve on another one. So, and then I also acknowledging that there are a lot of women and femmes who may be, and by the way, I'm using women and femmes because Pipeline Angels is open to anyone identifying with womanhood, cis, trans, non-binary, and we've gotten feedback from non-binary members and entrepreneurs that had we not had that language, A, they wouldn't have applied, and B, they wouldn't have known that they would be welcome. So just a little bit of a hint in terms of the sort of inclusive culture that we're working hard to foster at Pipeline Angels. And so then a lot of women and femmes, may have experience serving on nonprofit boards. And while there is a little bit of an analogy, it's not completely the same. And so our goal really was, by getting more of our members to serve on startup boards, this could then be a feeder to then have more of our members hopefully then graduate onto public boards. And I'm thrilled to share with you that we have a collaboration with the board list, where our members are able to be nominated there. So that's another, and I think hopefully Vianney will share this later. I think the Alumni Society might also have a relationship with the board list. So for those of you who asked, especially if you might be guys, that might also be something for you to check out as a resource. Okay, there was another question. Let me check out. Okay, so Maria, yay, Nicole, you answered Maria's question, which is very popular. Then Gloria is kind of asking a little bit in terms of other ways to, to support. I think you had mentioned the pro bono piece, which I think is really important, and some other crowdfunding, crowd investing platforms that are, I think Vianney included them on the chat function. Is there anything else that you would add, maybe, Nicole? One thought I have right now, and you let me know.
Yeah.
Oh, you go
ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, especially for any. I was gonna say, especially for any of you who maybe, if you work at a big company, I will just be candid. If there are ways that you can host office hours or try to engage your company and brand to find ways to sponsor startup events, etc. Maybe that's another way also to help support startups and entrepreneurs and founders. So another idea, because of course I have lots. Okay, so there are a lot of Angel 101 programs to help people start as investors or entrepreneurs. Can you speak to any you have personal experience with that you found helpful? Thanks. Nicole.
I haven't. I started this angel investing journey two and a half years ago. And I've been faithful to Pipeline Angels, really, because it's been such a welcoming atmosphere. And I think once you find your group, you might be inclined to stick with it. I do get reached out to by other groups, and oftentimes I go and I check them out. And I'm not very impressed by the diversity of their team, the diversity of their, if it's a VC fund, their limited partners. It's really important to me that the people that I'm investing alongside share my values. And, it's well and good to invest in companies that look great on paper. They'll have great returns. But for me, the whole reason, my money is limited. And I know that other people have a lot more money, and those companies will get funded. Personally, I'm concerned for those in the Latinx community and the Black community, women and femme-run companies that might not be getting a fair evaluation, that VCs and other angels might not be taking meetings with. My time is limited, so I'm going to align myself with groups that share my values. So I would encourage you to take that lens as you scope out different Angel 101 groups and the firms behind those.
I love that, because that kind of gets into a big important component of even someone's angel investing journey, which is clarifying and at least considering what one's own investment thesis might be. And so both in terms of, we've mentioned impact, we mentioned culture, something that is, in terms of when people ask what makes Pipeline Angels, one of the sessions that we hold during our orientation is an unconscious bias training. And that's because candidly, we want to, disrupt, current systems, and we don't want to perpetuate them. And this is where I'm very cheekily say more white women investing in more white women is continuing to perpetuate these systems. And so we really are focused on building a broader inclusive investing community that then funds a broader inclusive startup ecosystem. And that is key to one of my favorite poems out there that we share with our members is called Invitation to a Brave Space by Mickey Scott B. Jones. And in it, Mickey encourages us to build a brave space so we can have the brave conversations. And Dominique D'Urbigny has this tweet that is awesome, which is, if you're in the race and gender equity work and you're not bringing up white supremacy and the patriarchy, what are you really doing? And my favorite piece of that is what are you really doing? And so this actually is a really great transition to both Marcia and Topiltzin's question, which was, much of the discussions on getting angel funding is for tech-related startups. Are there angel investors for startups for developing affordable housing or senior assisted living facilities in rural areas with mostly Latinx residents of the US? And then in addition to that, Tobiltsin adds, building on this question, Natalia, do you find that the startups that Pipeline Angels considers are different from those of other angel groups? So the reason that I think these two questions really go with, Nicole, what you were saying about the impact and why are you doing this? Why are you getting into angel investing? Is because number one, there are different sorts of angel groups out there. I think maybe taking a step back and saying the main thing that makes an angel investment is that you're literally investing in a for-profit company. It might be pre-revenue, so it might still not be making money. However, the structure is that it's for profit. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because sometimes, like if the word gets thrown around, like I invested in this nonprofit, so like that is considered, like overall, like generally speaking, a donation, right? And so when you actually make an angel investment, you literally own a part of that company. And so when you're thinking about these two questions, yes, I'd say like there are impact investing networks out there that you should check out. There's a social venture circle is one of them. And so that's something else that, is out there for you to consider. And then the other piece that I'd say, which is really important, Nicole, you reminded me of this when you mentioned about VCs, is that with our members, we've shared that they're changing the face of angel investing. And we also share with them that they have the opportunity to change the face of venture capital how can they change the face of venture capital? By investing in funds led by women, non-binary people, and men of color fund managers, because that's another piece that we often don't talk about. And this goes to Pilton's question, which is, so what makes Pipeline Angels portfolio companies who they are? Yeah, I'd say, a ton of our companies, a year or two after they've secured funding from our members, have gone on to, secure funding from later stage groups from like Intel Capital Diversity Fund. I think a couple years ago, Morgan Stanley had a multicultural innovation lab, and 3 out of the 10 companies were Pipeline Angels portfolio companies. And we don't yet have an official relationship with Morgan Stanley. This was simply us sharing the application with our 80 plus portfolio companies that then they ended up, selecting these 3 portfolio companies. And then Goldman Sachs recently launched with GS program, and 2 companies out of the, I think 8 or 10 that were selected are Pipeline Angels portfolio companies.
Hi, I just came up. Time check. I think that is all the time that we have for today, which I hate to cut this conversation short because it's so rich and so amazing. And I've learned so many things. I've taken ferocious notes, and I'm seeing so many great questions here. So thank you both so much for your incredible insights today and for your time to join us. Thank you to everybody who tuned in.
I know that there's one final question that I had and would love to ask Nicole, which is, especially given the timing right now in the world, from police violence to the wealth gap, white supremacy and anti-Blackness are at the root, and the Latinx community is not exempt from white supremacy and anti-Blackness. And so, Nicole, if you could offer one takeaway to the folks in the audience, what is one way that non-Black Latinx could be supporting Afro-Latinx folks within our community and or outside of it?
Oh my gosh, talk to our families. Talk to our families however, they need to be spoken to. If that's in Spanish, let's make the effort. So let's educate ourselves and then educate those around us, because sometimes we think that we're not part of the problem, but it can be in our own homes and our own families. So I think those conversations are critical.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Nicole and Natalia. Thank you for sharing those resources and those. There's a lot of books that Natalia wanted to recommend here today. Yeah. So we can share those also after the talk today. We'll be sure to link to them. So thank you both again so much. Thank you all for joining and tuning in, for all of your incredible questions. For anybody who wants to watch this or share these incredible insights with your networks, the replay will be available after the broadcast. So we will be sharing that with you all. As always, love to get feedback. So let us know what you thought thought of the discussion today, what topics you want to hear about next. Angel investing, very, very important topic. So we'd love to continue doing these more and more. Again, be well, everybody. Stay safe, and we will see you at the next SocietyCast very soon. Thank you both.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.